of the topics discussed before. In every chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna stresses that devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. This same point is summarized in the 18th chapter as the most confidential path of knowledge. Bhagavad Gita 18.1.
Thank you very much, Mataji. So we see how, although the yoga ladder has been described by Krishna with various steps to the yoga ladder, including various forms of the yoga processes by Lord Krishna, and some of the other important points which we'll cover in the subsequent slide. But the underlying essence across all the chapters of Bhagavad Gita is the process of bhakti, devotional service. And as part of the group activity, we will also go into the detail to understand this. So next is, what are the main points that have been discussed in Bhagavad Gita till now? And these points we will just cover in 5 to 6 points with not more than 3 to 4 words per point. So any devotee would like to volunteer to mention on a high level what all are the essential points covered by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita so far, from chapter 1 till 17. We don't have to go into the details, just on a high level. Shailaja Mataji, you have unmuted. You want to share anything?
Prabhuji, maybe starting with we are not these bodies, we are the souls. And we are in the ignorance and the Maya, due to which we identify ourselves with the false ego. That is, we are these bodies and all these are our bodily relationships, and then we lament for those. But then we have to elevate ourselves from the materialist, 3 modes of materialistic nature, Tamoguna, Rajoguna, and Satvaguna, and then come to the Vishuddha Satvaguna to see the reality as is, to see that we all are the souls and we don't have to lament for the loss of the bodies, and the soul always existed. It will continue to exist, and then it always existed even in the past. And as a soul, we will have to, soul is eternal, and while the body is temporary. So basic differences between the soul and the body: it doesn't feel the heat or the cold, it doesn't feel hungry or, those things, while the body actually feels that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shailaja Mataji. So you mentioned the knowledge of Atma Gyan, which has been explained by Krishna, and the soul as one of the 5 principal topics that are covered in Bhagavad Gita. The Jiva is one, about whom Lord Krishna explained. So thank you very much, Shailaja Mataji. Then we have quite a few hand raised. We will go one by one. So Pramod Dubey Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
in the chapter 2, Krishna has very clearly instructed us for karmanne vadikaraste ma phalesu kadachit. We have the right to perform the activities, but we should never think of the fruity activities. If we get connected to the fruiting activities, then it's the cause of all the miseries in the world. That's a message we learn into the chapter 2, which is very important. I think.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Pramod Prabhu. So Prabhuji mentioned Krishna teaches us how to perform work for the benefit, for the pleasure of Lord Krishna, which is the process of Karma Yoga. How to perform our work. Any other point we'll cover one by Radhika Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I can summarize chapter wise in one line.
We have just cover on a high level, because chapter wise summary we'll do as part of the group activity.
Perfect, Prabhu. Okay, so basically, high level summary means the entire Bhagavad Gita itself is divided into 3 portions. The first 6 chapters, Krishna is talking about Karma Yoga and how you can reach Krishna through Karma Yoga, because currently we are in Karma Kanda platform, so elevation through Karma Yoga. This is one. And the last 6 chapters, which we've been doing, chapter 13 to 18, talks about Jnana Yoga, which means that how can we achieve Krishna through Jnana, and thereby understanding the qualities or material energy, how we will be able to elevate ourselves to spiritual plane. The middle chapter is the sandwich, which is Bhakti Yoga, which is the most confidential knowledge, which helps us, and it is a sandwich because it's the most tasty part, how we can reach Krishna, what we should think at the time of death. And the simplest process of that is, always think of Krishna. right? So that is what he is telling. So the answer is devotional service. By serving Krishna, we can directly take the escalator and reach Goloka instead of doing the other methods. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Radhika Mataji. So you mentioned how various 3 sections of Bhagavad Gita till chapter 6 from 7 to 12 and 13 to 18 cover Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Thank you very much. Adish Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Any other point apart from this?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes,
Yes,
Prabhuji.
so in chapter number 3, Krishna explains about how we should do about karma yoga. That is doing the karma means duty, and yoga is connecting to Lord through duty. And then in chapter 4,
chapter wise summary we will go through. Adish Prabhu, maybe on a high level you can mention
yes,
any
Prabhuji. So
one
that he
particular
also
thing.
explains how we should understand, like we should not understand just like we should understand to discipline succession. Then he talks about the various types of yoga. That is, he also tells about Ashtanga yoga, which is not recommended for this yoga, but he talks about it. And Ajna says that no, this is very difficult. Then later he talks about the who would surrender, who would not surrender. Then how we should remember Krishna at the time of death. And then he talks about the various opulences. And then he talks about bhakti. And like in chapter 10, chapter 10, he talks about the essence of Gita, that is the 4 shloka, the Chatur Shloki, and then he shows us shows the Vishwarupa, and he gives a criteria that if someone says they are God, they have to show Vishwarupa. And 12th chapter, he explains us the various levels of bhakti. If we cannot do Aladya, we can do sadhana. So the various levels of bhakti he explains, and he talks about the kshetra, the soul, and the lower of the the kshetra, the field, and the lower of the field. And then he also tells us that
Thank you, Prabhuji.
heart there is Atma and Paramatma. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Adish Prabhu. So chapter wise details we will still discuss as part of the group activity. Thank you very much. Any other point out of the 5 principal topics covered in Bhagavad Gita? Shailaja Mataji mentioned about Jiva. What are other topics that are also covered by Krishna through all these discussions? So we'll go Sujata Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes,
Here Krishna is establishing himself as the Purushottama. He is the enjoyer, and then he is the controller and the well-wisher of that. So we need to remember that is the major thing he establishes himself. That was a major point.
Thank you very much. So we covered Ishvara, we covered Jiva. What are the other topics covered in Bhagavad Gita? Thank you very much, Sujata Mataji. Prakash Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Krishna is talking about Jnana Yoga or Sankhya Yoga, but still working the Krishna consciousness or Niskam Karma Yoga is better than Jnana and Sankhya Yoga. He also tells that instead of renunciation of the work in Krishna consciousness is much better to achieve perfection. But at the end, he says that out of all this Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, etc., it is the devotional service, Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, which is the best to reach me.
Yes, Prakash Prabhu. Thank you very much for explaining the hierarchy, how Krishna explains various ladders of the yoga ladder, with various steps of the yoga ladder and the hierarchy. Shama Gopika Mataji, any topics out of the 5 apart from Ishvara and Jiva that Krishna talks about?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, regarding the Prakriti, like we talked about material modes of nature, chapter 14. So we have covered the Prakriti also, and Kala, eternal time. Yeah,
Prakriti, Kala and Karma. Yes, yeah. Mother. Thank you very much. And we also discussed in detail in chapter number, actually at various chapters, but in detail also in the beginning portion about the Varnashram, Dharma, we discuss about the 3 modes of material nature, how they work, and the 5 topics, which are Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, and Karma. So on a high level, these were the points that were covered. We will also go through the chapter-wise details as part of the group activity. Any devotees would like to add any other point which is not mentioned? Vilas Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Already most of the things covered mainly. So chapter-wise detail we will discuss in detail.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. So now we proceed to the group activity, which is how Krishna has, although he has mentioned the various yoga practices in Bhagavad Gita, how throughout Bhagavad Gita, the underlying stress, the underlying theme remains how we can surrender to Lord Krishna through the process of devotional service in loving surrender to Lord Krishna, how it is mentioned as the essential and conclusive message throughout Bhagavad Gita. So we will form a team. I'm just thinking, I think team of, we total need 9 teams to cover 2 chapters each, and each chapter may not have same amount of details referring to the bhakti yoga or devotional service. So we request devotees to keep the points they explain mainly related to bhakti yoga from the specified chapters that they have been allocated, and even if it is just 1 point across the chapter, it is fine, but so that those devotees who have got the chapters around bhakti yoga, they can get sufficient time to explain. So we will have small groups of devotees around 5 to 6 each, 9 teams. So each team will be given a set of chapters. Say first team will be given chapter 1 and 2, second team chapter 3 and 4. Each team of devotees need to go through those chapters as part of the group exercise to jot down those important verses, those important statements from the purport, which talk about, which guide to the underlying principle of following the process of devotional service from the specified chapters, and explain with the help of those verses, explain with the help of those purports in the specified chapters how Krishna is stressing, teaching the process of bhakti yoga. And in your explanation, you can give references to the verses, specific statements made by Srila Prabhupada in the purport as necessary. So in order to have all the groups cover the presentations, we will have around, say, 10 to max 15 minutes for all the devotees to prepare. Presentation by each group, although I have mentioned here 10 minutes, I believe not all groups will need 10 minutes, especially those chapters which are a bit more technical in nature and where there is a limited exposure or stress given to bhakti yoga. Please limit your presentation to the points on bhakti yoga. And then we will have conclusion by Namanishta Prabhuji, which is for 10 minutes. So any query on this particular exercise before we have the breakout rooms?
Prabhu, Radhika here.
Yes, Radhika.
Correct my understanding if it's right. So in the 2 chapters, we will talk only topics which will help us elevate or connect to bhakti. Is this right?
Yes, you will first shortlist the verses from those chapters which talk about bhakti yoga, and with the help of those verses and Srila Prabhupada's purports from the relevant verses from those specific chapters, the group will present how bhakti yoga is being pointed to, or process of devotional service has been explained by Lord Krishna.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Like I'll just give one pointer, like say for example chapter 1. Now this is not exactly the chapter on bhakti yoga, but here also we see references like say for example, just to give a few hints, like Hanumanji on the flag, or the chariot given by Agni, or Krishna explaining through various hints how the Pandavas' victory is assured, right? So you can give the references to the specific verses and purports from those verses. And in case any of the group devotees don't find any connects, feel free to ping and I can give you directly the pointers from the slides itself, which we are going to discuss, not an issue. So
Sure,
we will
Prabhu.
have total, thank you, Mataji, total 9 groups, and each group can have around 10 to 12 minutes to prepare, and we will give a 60 seconds notice before we end the breakout rooms. So please jot down the points that you are going to present in notepad, and each group can have a set of 2 volunteers to speak. And my request is take around 5 to 6, max 7 minutes, so that we have at least 2 to 3 minutes for question answers. Any devotees want to ask any questions or share any comments, we can have time for that. Namanishta Prabhuji, you want to add anything on this, on the exercise?
Oh, that's okay. So you need something like groups of 6 each, 9
Uh,
groups of 6.
yes, Prabhuji, 9 groups, 5 to 6 devotees. So first group we will have chapter 1 to 2. Second group chapter 3 to 4, like that we will go in sequence. So 9th group we will have chapter 17 and 18th. So 18th is not fully covered, but you can cover the verses that you are in knowledge of. Hare Krishna. So we will start. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Manisha Mataji, Rupa Mataji, are you clear about the activity?
No, Prabhu, I just joined. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mataji, we are forming a team of around 5 to 6 devotees in 9 groups. So each group need to refer to the specific 2 chapters. Like say, for example, first group will cover chapter 1, 2, second will cover chapter 3, 4. And from the assigned chapters, the devotees need to shortlist the specific verses where Lord Krishna is pointing to the process of devotional service. And with the help of those verses and Srila Prabhupada's statements from the purports, the team will present for those 2 chapters. How those 2 chapters are also pointing to the process of Bhakti Yoga, devotional service.
Okay, process of Bhakti Yoga in every chapter, basically. So any 2 chapters based on the group.
Yeah, so not any 2 chapters, yeah, based on the group, whichever are the specific 2 chapters.
Okay, Prabhu.
So 9 groups, 18 chapters. So say if you are part of group number 9, you will have chapter 17 and 18. Okay.
Okay, Prabhu.
So let me just assign you to the group. 1 second. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay, 1 second. Have you got a pop-up, Manisha Mataji, to join a group? Hare Krishna, Priyadarshi Mataji, Manas Prabhu, are you clear on the activity?
No, Prabhu, kindly explain. I just joined. I didn't have network till now.
Oh. Okay.
I'm away from home. I'm away from home.
Okay, Mataji. So see, we have made a team of 5 to 6 devotees each, total 9 devotees, 9 teams, who will be covering 2 chapters each. So from the assigned chapters, you need to shortlist the verses, the points where Lord Krishna is explaining about the process of bhakti, devotional service.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhu.
And
yeah.
Let me assign you to the group, Mataji.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
1 second. To group 5. I am assigning you to group 5, which means you have chapters 9th and 10th. Okay. You can join.
9 and 10. Okay, Prabhu. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Manas Ranjan Prabhu, Rajashri Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Was the time sufficient for all the devotees, or did any?
Hare Krishna.
Very less, Prabhu.
We had to manage.
We could complete safely one chapter.
Oh, okay. I apologize for that, but so that we have sufficient time for discussion. Okay.
Yeah,
And even during discussion, I strongly suggest and request all the devotees to please keep it to the point. Even if you finish in 2-3 minutes, it's not bad if the points are limited, so that we have sufficient time for discussion and any questions, and we can cover all chapters, especially the chapters around Bhakti Yoga in detail. So can we request 2 devotees per group to explain, and you need to only mention specific points from the 2 chapters that you have given, give reference to the verses or purports by Srila Prabhupada from those chapters. So we'll start with group 1, which is so which are the 2 devotees from group 1?
Muralikari Prabhuji and Namita Mataji.
All right, so Murali and Namita Mataji, wait 1 second. Yes, Murli Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I will start it. Then I will ask.
Your voice is breaking, Murli Prabhu.
Yeah.
Very nice. When in the breakout room, it was very nice.
Okay, Murli Prabhu, please go ahead.
Are you there, Prabhu? Murli Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
Namita Mataji, you want to start meanwhile?
Murli Prabhuji will start, Prabhuji. I am traveling, Prabhuji, here. Some disturbances are there. So I will quote a few, Prabhuji, on till Murli. Murli Prabhuji, are you there? Hare Krishna. Prabhuji.
Namita Mataji, you carry on.
Right, Prabhuji, in the first while, what
First part is about the signs of the victory. This flag, hand this flag on chariot. But more important is it's going to be a sign of victory. And the next one is
Hare Krishna. We request devotees who are not speaking, please keep mute so that other devotees are able to hear.
Am I audible now?
Your voice is breaking, Murli Prabhu, in between. Hare Krishna. All right, so we will come back to group 1 maybe in a while. Okay, or if any other devotees from this group are willing to present, you can nominate. If not, we will proceed to group 2.
Yeah, group 2, Prabhu, proceed to group 2. We'll come back. Muralikari's connectivity got lost suddenly, I think.
Okay, fine.
He has only noted down the points.
Sure, Prabhuji Prakash. We'll come back to Murli Prabhu. Group 2, which is chapter 3 and chapter 4. So who are the 2 devotees?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, so I'll be talking about chapter 3. Chapter 4, somebody else will take it up. Okay?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so chapter 2 talks of, chapter 3, sorry, talks of Krishna consciousness misunderstood as inertia. Going to far ways and withdrawing from responsibilities is not enough. Correct way is in Kali Yuga is to do the Krishna conscious way. By doing devotional service only, we will elevate one to Krishna consciousness. And without knowing the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, it is not possible to get elevated in Krishna in the devotion service. That is the first point. Second point is just do your duty, being in Krishna consciousness without expecting fruits of action. That is the second point. And the third point is devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment rarely eat sin. The next point is living bodies depend on food grains, which is dependent on rains. And the rains is dependent on performance or yagnas. And yagnas are born out of prescribed duties, which we cannot ignore. And the final one is Acharya is necessary to impart teaching to the students. Acharya cannot manufacture rules against the principles of revealed scriptures.
Thank you, Jaivan Prabhu. And will you also be covering points from chapter 4, or these are the total points from both the chapters?
No, Prabhuji, chapter 4 I'll be telling Prabhuji.
Okay. Yes, Sujata Mataji.
So in chapter 4, we take the verses 4.9, 10, 11, where Krishna says the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world. So here we say that attaining the perfect stage of liberation, we need to know knowing the Lord, you do get liberated from birth and death. That's one point, Prabhuji. And then Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha Manamaya Mam Upasriti Bhava Jnana Tapasa Uttama. So being freed from attachment, fear and anger, fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me. So that is where we talk about Bhakti. And then he says in 11, all of them as they surrender unto me, I reward accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. So there he talks about how the surrendering to the Lord. And then we had 4.41 and 4.42, where, there's of course, about how to be therefore, one who has renounced the fruits of his action, whose doubts are destroyed by transcendental knowledge, and who is situated firmly in self, is not bound by work. I think that is 10. And 42 is finally summarizes that the weapon of knowledge, you can slash out the ignorance. So there he talks about the other sacrifices and things. Krishna consciousness is awakened by different types of sacrifices to demigods, then all thing controlling senses in this by Partiri. So in the Varnashrams, all these are known as the important factor is self-realization. So we talk about bhakti in the last chapter also. So
Thank
these
you.
are the verses
Thank you.
we talked about.
Thank you very much, Sujata Mataji. So like Mataji mentioned, can I request all the devotees who are presenting to go a bit slow and mention the specific verses, specific part of the purport you are reading, so that other devotees can refer it to note it down, right? So even if you cover less points, that is fine, but just mention the number of the specific verse, specific purport you want to refer to, so that other devotees can also take a note of this, refer to it in their local copy of Bhagavad Gita. Thank you very much, Sujata Prabhu and Jayvant, Sujata Mataji and Jayvant Prabhu. Any question devotees have on chapter 3, chapter 4, on how Krishna is stressing bhakti, the process of bhakti yoga in these two chapters for the group? All right, so thank you very much for all the devotees in group number 2. So now we proceed to group 3, which will have chapter number 5 and 6. So who are the two volunteers from group 3?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Valar Mataji. Yes, Mataji. 1 second.
Allow me to share the screen, and from our group, Anita Goel Mataji will present the chapter 5, and Tarini Mataji will present the chapter 6.
Okay, one second. I'll pin Tarini Mataji, and who else?
Anita Goel Mataji.
Okay, fine.
And I will share the screen, Mataji, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Yes, fine.
Hello.
So Hare Krishna, while we are doing, so in the chapter 5, we discussed the verse 5.2.
Just a moment, Mataji. I want to share the screen. I cannot share the screen.
Oh, 1 second. I'll make you co-host. 1 second. Hold on. Namanishta Prabhuji, can you please make me host Prabhuji so I can make few co-hosts? Hare Krishna, Namanishta Prabhuji. Sorry, Valar Mataji, can we proceed because I think Prabhuji is away. So we would need Prabhuji to make me host so I can add different devotees as co-host.
I sent to you, Prabhuji, the present.
Okay. 1 second. On WhatsApp?
Yeah, Prabhuji, just
okay.
Just a moment. See, Prabhuji, if you receive.
Let me check 1 second. Yes. Let me just share the screen. Yes, Anita Mataji, please proceed.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Yeah, so like we said, chapter 5, we discussed verse 29. Bhoktaram yagna tapsam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhidam sarvabhutanam yatva mam shantim rachati. So basically, this is the peace formula. And so a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attain peace from the pangs of material misery. So basically, the three things here regarding the Bhakti Yoga, knowing Krishna, that is the biggest devotion that because Lord Krishna, he is the supreme enjoyer, he is the supreme proprietor, and he is the supreme well-wisher. So, and also we discuss about the Brahma Nirvana, who follows Krishna also get the Nirvana.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you very much, Anita Mataji. So that's it from chapter number 5, 529, Peace Formula. Shall we
yes,
proceed?
Prabhuji.
Okay.
Then proceed. Chapter 6, Prabhuji.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Anita Mataji. Yes, Tarini Mataji, please go ahead.
In chapter 6, the verse 47 talks about Bhakti Yoga, and translation is, and of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abide in me, thinks of me within himself and render transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. The important point from this verse is the person who do devotional service worship Krishna is the greatest person when compared to all yogis, and the person who worship Krishna will have great faith in Krishna, and he takes shelter in him and always think of him and render loving service towards him. That is the path for bhakti. And one more thing, this was just connect to the Bhakti Yoga also. And in purport, Prabhupada gave the reference from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.3. And in this purport, we also know about the difference between worship and service. Worship is just giving respect and honor to Krishna, but service is we have to do the service with love and faith. This is what we could learn.
Thank you very much, Tarini Mataji, Anita Mataji, Valar Mataji, and the group number 3. Any questions, any thoughts anybody wants to have on this particular part of Gita, chapter 5 and chapter 6, where Krishna has also mentioned verses related to the process of devotional service. All right, so we...
Sir?
Yes, Mataji.
Prabhu, I find chapter the shloka 5.29, which is Bhokta Ram Yajna Tapasam, and then this shloka very connected because in first shloka 5.29, Krishna talks about his that he's the enjoyer, he's the controller or proprietor, he's a well-wisher, and then he goes back in 6.47 explaining how that is possible. And then because I found that he uses the word when he talks about how the difference between worship and service, he talks about how the service can be, how, I'm not sure if I'm blabbering here, but I like, I find similarity in both the verses. In a way, he talks about that having faith in him is the greatest faith. Having taken shelter in him talks about how he's a best friend. I was just thinking about him, he's talking about how he's superior. So I don't know, it just feels that both the shlokas are like a copy paste of each other with different words.
Thank you very much, Manisha Mataji. So in 5.29, like Lord Krishna is mentioning that whoever realizes Krishna in these roles as the best friend, as the supreme enjoyer and controller of everything, only that person will be able to achieve lasting peace. So thank you very much. We have hand raised by Sujata Mataji. Hare Krishna. Sujata Mataji.
Hare Krishna. I just found this verse text 20-23. That is chapter 6. The purport, the Prabhupada has written a detailed thing about how gradually practice of yoga, one gradually detached from thing, and then he concludes that best practice of yoga in this age is Krishna consciousness. The description is very elaborate. I think that also is nice. Yeah, purport is very nice.
If it is not too long, you want to quickly read?
The purport is very long, Prabhuji, but it is at least it is reference is very nice to read. I mean to note it down. Like
6:23.
6:20 to 23.
20 to 23. Thank you very much.
That's all I'd add to that, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Sujata Mataji. So all the group devotees in group 3. So now we move to group 4, which is chapter 7 and chapter 8. So who are the two devotees from here?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, this is Guru Nishtha. My apologies, we couldn't do both chapters. We were a bit slow for the time. I can talk on the 7th chapter, knowledge of the absolute.
Sure.
I have some pointers here. We start the 7th chapter, knowledge of the absolute. Basically, we are talking about Krishna and Bhakti, and 7.1, Krishna stresses the importance of hearing, how we should hear. Then 7.5, Krishna further explains his Shaktis, Para Shakti and Apara Shakti, Apara being the inferior. And he also stresses that Jivatma, we are the superior energy, the Para Shakti of the Lord. And then moving on to 7.15, Krishna says that there are still some miscreants, some foolish people of less intelligence who do not surrender to Krishna. But the higher one, the people with higher intelligence surrender to Krishna. So the importance of surrender is given by him. And in 7.21, he says, I am the super soul in the heart. And if any Jivatma desires or prays to any demigod, but still Krishna is the supreme controller. And he will make our faith strong in that particular demigod. But still, ultimately, anything to be granted is by Krishna only.
Thank you, Guru Nishtha Mataji. Any other verse?
7.23, where I think we covered that. And but in summarizing, the eternal devotional service to Krishna is liberation. We have to just serve Krishna. That's the summary of this.
Yes. Thank you very much, Guru Nishtha Mataji and Group 4 devotees for chapter 7 and 8. So I know some of the devotees were not keeping well. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes, Mataji.
Can I, but I'm not feeling well, but I can explain little more about this chapter 7. I did, there is explaining about two types of Namam Dushkridino Muda, Prapatyante Naratama, Maya, the four types of devotees who is not following Krishna, and the four types of Chadurvidha Bhajante Mam, the four types of devotees who is following Lord Krishna is explaining in that chapter as well. And coming to chapter 8, I can give you some description of the explanation what I understood.
Yes,
Sri Krishna briefly describes that several concepts of the terms that Upanishads, that the Ashtanga Yoga is mainly he's explaining in this one, and he also explains that the destination of the soul after death, where it is reaching after death. So, and also he is describing that the one who is always remembering him will reach the abode of Lord. And tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmari udyaja maya arpita manobuddhi. That's the one who is always thinking of him with always thinking of him, thinking of God, will must all reach the abode of God. That is he's explaining in that one. And
Mataji, you can mention the verses numbers. So
it's slogan number 7 says 7 Prabhuji Tasmat Sarvash, and so slogan number 8 also is mentioned Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena. For everything he is Bhakti Yoga, he is Abhyasa Yoga, but he in this chapter he is Ashtanga Yoga is mentioning, but Bhakti Yoga is the most. He has already explained in the chapter 6. He's explained already. So in after that he's giving the Sri Krishna is then talks of various abodes of the material realm and the cycle of creation. Then he further explains how the multitudes of beings manifest on these abodes. And
so
at that
specific verses for Bhakti Yoga you can point, Mataji, where specific devotional service is being discussed.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, that's all. That is the main thing. Tasma sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmari udyaja maya arpita manobuddhi. That is the main slogan in that one. Hare Krishna Mata Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Divya Rukmini Mataji, for presenting even when you were not feeling well. So thank you very much.
Unable to talk, Prabhu. Sorry.
Take care, Mataji. No issue. Thank you. Sujata Mataji.
We wish you good success.
No, Prabhuji, just my
Hare Krishna. Sujata Mataji wanted to share anything on chapter 7, 8?
No, Prabhuji, I just for the previous thing I put it.
Oh, okay, fine. Any other devotees would like to share any other point from chapter 7, 8 on where Lord Krishna is specifically pointing to the process of devotional service, bhakti, because this is a Bhakti Yoga section.
The last verse, Prabhu. The last verse. Verse 28.
Mention the number. Yeah.
Vedesh
8:28.
Yes. Verse 20.
Yes, Prabhuji. Please read out.
Yageshu tapeshu jai. Vedeshu yageshu tapeshu tapasjaiva daneshu punya phalam pradistam ateyi tar sarvam viditva yogi param sanam upaiti chadya. So a person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all this, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal goal. So this is the concluding part of the chapter, Prabhu.
Yes, thank you very much, Murli Prabhu. So a devotee by default derives the results of all other processes, including charities, sacrifices, austerities, pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. So this also Krishna glorifies the process of devotional service. So any other devotee would like to mention anything on this? If not, we proceed to so Ankit Prabhu on the chat has mentioned 8:16. Brahmaloka is also, yes, Krishna is mentioning even the highest planet in this material creation, Brahmaloka, the residents are also subjected to birth and death. That's why only in the spiritual world can we get out of this cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death. Abrahma Bhunar Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna. Thank you very much. And Namita Mataji has mentioned 8:20. Parastasmatu bhavonyo. Yet there is another unmanifest nature. Yes. So beyond the material creation, there is another unmanifest nature which Krishna is glorifying here as eternal and which is transcendental to both the manifested and unmanifested matter. And that abode Krishna mentions as supreme and it's never annihilated. So thank you very much. If there is Valar Mataji, Hare Krishna. Please unmute Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. There is one more verse, 8.5, which is the Antakale cha mam eva smaram mukta kalavaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nasti atra samsaya. Here it talks about, at the end of the life. So it also emphasizes the importance of Krishna consciousness here. So when one is quitting the body in Krishna consciousness, is then automatically transferred to the transcendental nature of Supreme Lord Prabhuji. So I think 8.5 also should be in then.
Yes, Mataji. So importance of having a proper consciousness and remembrance at the end of giving up, at the end of our life, at the time of giving up our body. Krishna explains here and how it has a major impact on where we land next. So thank you very much. Now we proceed to the next group, which is group number 5, who will cover chapter 9 and chapter 10. So who are the 2 volunteers from this group?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Pranams, Dandavat Pranams Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Is this Priyadarshini Mataji?
Yeah, Reena Mataji and Priyadarshini Mataji. I will be covering 9th chapter and Priyadarshini Mataji will be covering 10th chapter, Prabhuji.
Sure. 1 second.
Okay. Mangalam Mataji, Chetan Prabhuji and Narsareddy Prabhuji were there in our group. On behalf of them, I would like to tell the gist of 9th chapter. So in the 8th chapter, shall I start, Prabhuji?
Yes, please go ahead.
In the 8th chapter, Lord has explained that life is the preparation and death is the examination. And we have to remember Lord Krishna at the time of our death, which is very difficult unless one practices devotional service throughout their life. And how to practice this devotional devotion throughout the life. That's what Lord is explaining in the 9th chapter. So in the 9th chapter, Lord is telling 2 criteria for one to be in devotional service. That is Anasuyave, he is telling in the first verse. And if somebody is very jealous, naturally they cannot hear about Lord Krishna. So throughout Bhagavad Gita, we will be glorifying about Lord Krishna. So it will become very difficult to hear the glorification of Lord Krishna. So naturally they cannot do devotional service. And second factor Lord is telling is one should be faithful. They should have faith in Lord Krishna. So if we see the 9 stages of bhakti, so it will start with Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya. Then only one can attain the love of God. And in the second verse 9.2, Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyakshavangamam Dharmam Sasukam Kartum Avyam. So Lord Krishna is explaining the devotional service is characteristics of the devotional service. He is telling it is Rajavidya and it is very secret and it is very pure and it is the Uttamam, it will remove the Ajnana, and Pratyakshavangamam. And in the present life itself, we can experience the effects of this bhakti yoga, and it is easily performed. Susukam kartuvayam vavyayam. That's what Lord is telling. So then somebody is asked to love somebody, then they will ask why you have to love Lord Krishna. That's what they will say. So then Lord is telling why one has to love Lord Krishna. So he's telling. In the 9.10th verse, Mayadhyakshena prakritihi suyate sacharacharam etunanenu kaunteya jagad viparivartate. He is telling he is the God, G for generator, O for operator, D for destroyer. He is everything. He is the cause of all causes. Everything rests on him. And without his will, nothing will move in this world. And he is the ultimate abode for all the living entities. So we have to love Lord, but we don't have that natural love towards Krishna. That's why like we have to practice throughout your life, so that like we will get into the devotional service of the Lord Krishna. Then somebody might tell like, okay, like let me worship Devata because the fruit will be very easy. So then Lord is telling, yes, like you can worship Lord, Devatas, but it is avidya purvakam. Lord is telling it is worshipping me, but in it is not the proper way of worshipping Lord Krishna. Like in the purport, Prabhupada is telling like somebody should if they water the root of a plant, like whole plant will be nourished. That's what like Prabhupada is explaining. So instead of worshipping the 30 crores devatas, it is the intelligent person should worship the Lord Krishna. That's what he's telling. And at the same time, Lord is telling it is not very difficult for me to worship. I'm not asking great things. Like he's telling in 9.26 verse is telling patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti uparatam ashnami prayatatmanaha. Is telling like just one flower, one leaf, little water, one fruit. Like if you offer me with love and affection, I will accept. That's what Lord is telling. And whatever you do, that is yatkaroshi yadashnasi yajjoshi dadasi yatapasasi kauntaya tadarpa. Okay, I'm not getting that verse, sorry. So like yes, Madarpanam, like whatever you do, like you offer it to me. That's what Lord is asking. And Lord is telling like and the persons who are fools will not understand Krishna, and he will consider Krishna as ordinary person. And somebody worships Krishna, he is considering them as Mahatmas. And he is telling like anyone can do devotional service, like the person who are in low birth, the women, and anything can come to devotional service, and they will be considered as saintly because they're situated in determination. That's what Lord is telling. And if somebody comes to devotional service, if they do some mistakes also, Lord will purify them. So that's why Lord is telling that devotional the importance of devotional service in the last verse, that is 9.34 verse. Same thing will be repeated in the 18th verse also, that is twice it is repeated. Lord is telling manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuro mamu petyatu. Sorry, I'm not getting
Mame
it.
Vaishyasi
Yuktaiva matpara
Atmanam
matparayanaha. He is telling like always keep like engage your mind in me and offer obeisances, worship me, then completely absorb in me. Like you will without doubt you will attain me. Like this is what Lord is summarizing the 9th chapter. So like always like 24 hours of a day, without wasting even a fraction of a second, like we should constantly remember Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Reena Mataji, for explaining so nicely. And in this particular chapter, almost every other verse is worth quoting for pure devotional service. So you have explained quite extensively across multiple verses. So just one point here, in this chapter, we also discussed about why this particular knowledge is being called as most confidential. We learned about what is confidential knowledge, what is more confidential, and what is most confidential. So the 3 levels, anybody recollect that? What was the confidential knowledge? And why this knowledge is most confidential? Any volunteer? If not, we proceed.
Why it is most confidential is it is the highest of the knowledge.
No,
And it is not
raise
easily
your
attainable
hand.
to anybody.
Please raise your hand. Sorry, Mataji. Sorry, who is answering this? Priyadarshini Mataji?
No, 10th chapter, I'll take up, Prabhuji.
Okay, fine. Sorry, whoever was answering, just tell your name so we can pin you.
Shailaja here.
Shailaja Mataji. Yes, Mataji, please
That
go
is
ahead.
okay. I can proceed.
Okay.
It says it is not easily attainable to anybody. Even if they get the knowledge, unless the soul is purified, until they have the surrenderance to me, they cannot perform the devotional service. And it is very, very difficult and unreachable for the highest living beings also.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Shailaja Mataji. Prakash Prabhu, would you like to share anything on this? Why this knowledge is most confidential? What was the hierarchy we discussed for chapter 9?
The Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The knowledge is confidential, more confidential, and most confidential. The confidential knowledge is the soul and body are different, and we are the soul. The more confidential knowledge is super soul is living with the soul, and then devotional service is the most confidential knowledge.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. And why it is most confidential? Because it explains the activities what the soul performs as part of pure devotional service. Because it discusses the activities of the soul in pure devotional service. We had one more hand raised with, thank you very much, Prakash Prabhu. Who was the other devotee who had raised his or her hand along with Prakash Prabhu? Valar Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Just now I raised my hand, but I thought Prakash Prabhuji almost answered similar. So I can just repeat what he said. So the confidential knowledge is the knowledge of knowing this body is not the soul is not this body. The second one, the more confidential is we are part and parcel of the Lord. And then the most confidential knowledge is we are in the constitutional position of serving Lord. So therefore, we do the devotional service.
Yes, activities of pure devotional service. It constitutes the most confidential knowledge. Thank you very much, Valar Mataji. So do any other devotees have any point on this? Manisha Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhuji, the way we talk about that is the most, the king of jungle, king of animals, king of fruits. That's the way, I mean, this is how Srila Prabhupada also explains in one of the books that there is the king of education. And in the king of education, and the king of books, Gita is the book, but in the king of education, this particular knowledge itself is the king of that education, where it talks about the ultimate truth of our soul and gives a direct perception of how we should be realizing ourselves. So I think that's why it makes it most confidential.
Thank you very much, Manisha Mataji. And I guess the book you mentioned is Raja Vidya, the King of Knowledge. So thank you very much. Do we have any other? Yes, so Reena Mataji beautifully explained. Thank you very much, Mangalam Mataji. So now we go to chapter 10. Priyadarshini Mataji, please unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhu and all devotees. In the 10th chapter, the verses which I'm going to refer to now are 7, 8, 9, 10, 17, and 24, where I found there's context reference to bhakti in these verses. The first one, 10.7, Etam vibhutim yogam cha mama yo veti tatvatah so vikalpena yogena yujate natra samshayaha. He who knows in truth this glory and power of mind engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this, there is no doubt. Now, the pinnacle of spiritual perfection is knowledge of the Supreme Lord. Now, unless one is confirmed about this, he will not take to devotional service. So, the different opulences of the Lord should be known to the devotee to engage in devotional service. Generally, people know that God is great, but they do not know how great he is. Now, this verse actually very nicely describes that. If they come to know how God is really great, then naturally they become surrendered souls to the Lord. The same way with us also, when we know the greatness of a person, we become committed and we have more reference to the person. The same way, and the Lord also, once we know his opulences, there's no alternative but to just follow him and engage in his service. So this is what this says. So this factual knowledge can be known, of course, from the great scriptures. Now there are some opulences of the Supreme Lord. Once we get fully convinced, as we accept Krishna with all faith, and this has increased. So the interest in his service also automatically increases. So one should not neglect to understand fully how great Krishna is, but by knowing the greatness of Krishna, one will be able to fix in sincere devotional service. The next one, 10.8. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate iti vatva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanditaha. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. A learned scholar, a scholar who has read widely about the scriptures, all the Vedic scriptures, who has studied the Vedas perfectly, has full information like Lord Chaitanya, and who knows how to apply these teachings and can understand that Krishna is the origin of everything in both the material and the spiritual worlds. He is the cause of everything. He is the origin of everything. And because he knows this perfectly, he becomes firmly fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
Mataji, you can mention the numbers so we can refer as you are reading.
10.8, Prabhu, 10.8. Yeah, 10.8. Now we know here that Narayanat Brahmajayate, Narayanat Prajapati Prajayate, then Narayanat Indro Jayate, Narayanat Astau, and Vishavu Jayante, Narayanat Ekadasha Rudra Jayante, Narayanat Dwadasha Aditya, they are also born. From Narayana, it's implicit here, Narayana, from Narayana born is, Brahma is born, then from him patriarchs are born, then Indra is born from him, then of course the Vasus are born from him, the Rudras are born, Adityas are born. If we know this, the more and more we know about Lord's opulence, our reverence becomes more and more. So in the beginning of the creation, there was only, of course, the Supreme Narayana, then later all the demigods came in. So Lord Krishna is the source of all generations. Everything emanates from him. He is the cause of all causes. And he is called the most efficient cause of everything. He says that because everything is born of me, I am the original source of all. Everything is under me. No one is above me. There is no supreme controller other than Krishna. Once we know all this, automatically our reverence becomes greater and greater. One who understands Krishna in such a way from a bona fide spiritual master and from Vedic literatures and automatically engages all his energy in Krishna consciousness. He becomes a true...
Thank you, Priyadarshini Mataji. So because of the constraints on time, maybe you can just give references to any other shlokas or purports that you want to stress.
Yeah, I will do that. Yeah.
So that we
Matchita Matgata Pranaha, 10.9 Prabhu, 10.9. Matchita Matgata Pranaha, Bodhayantaha Parasparam, Katentascha Mam Nityam Tushyanti Chagamanticha. My thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are surrendered to me, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss, enlightening one another and conversing about me. And 10.10 also, Prabhu, here. Tesham Satati Uktanam, Bhajatam Priti Purvakam, Tadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenamam Upayantite. Here it says, to those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Then we come to 10.17.
Thank you, Mataji. So we'll conclude here on chapter 10. Maybe one last verse you can quote, and then because we have 8 more chapters to go, maybe one more pointer you can mention, and then we conclude.
Katham vidyam aham yogim swam sada parishintayan keshu cha bhaveshu shinto asi bhagavan maya. How should I meditate on you? In what various forms are you to be contemplated, O blessed Lord? That's what is being asked. Should I stop, Prabhu, or can I go to one more?
This is fine, Mataji. Yeah. So thank you very much. Priyadarshini Mataji, Reena Mataji, and all the devotees in group 5. My apologies, we couldn't cover all the verses that you shortlisted, so that other devotees will also get chance to cover what they planned. Thank you very much. So we now move to group 6, which will cover chapter 11 and chapter 12. So can we have 2 devotee volunteers from this?
Prabhuji, Gunashriya, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Gunashri Mataji.
Yeah, Prabhuji, Sri Lakshmi Mataji, and I'll be presenting.
Sri Lakshmi Mataji and yourself, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji, please begin.
Can I share the screen, Prabhu?
Yes, 1 second. But hang on, there is some issue here. I need to make you co-host. Only then you will be able to share the screen. 1 second.
Fine, Prabhu. Otherwise, I'll just tell the pointers.
Okay, fine. Yes, Mataji, please.
Yeah. So for chapter 11, where Lord shows a Vishwarupa, I think it is like Lord is stressing on like it is a 200 form other than the 400 form or the universal form, which is closer to the devotee. And in this chapter 11.54, the verse where we need to begin some level of submission and the mercy will flow. So, my dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I'm standing before you and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way you can enter into the mysteries of my understanding. This verse, Sri Lakshmi Mataji, I'll just say the verse if you want to explain anything further.
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. Yeah. So and the next verse in 11 chapter is 11.55, which is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, Mataji. And the shloka is Mat karma krin mat paramo mat bhakta sanga varjitaha nirvairaha sarva bhuteshu yasa mam eti pa. Here Krishna he explains about how important is pure devotional service. Although many of them they say the impersonal that's the universal form is a wonderful form. At the same time, it's a temporary form. But mostly in this world, people they say that they are they want to see the universal form more than 200 form, and they say that universal form is superior. But in this shloka, at the end, when Arjuna asks for 200 form, that's the original form of the Lord, and Lord says that many like Divya Chakshu, Charma Chakshu, and Prema Chakshu. There are three types of eyes. Charma Chakshu is what we are. We see only the human beings, the bodies of the human beings or living entities. Next comes Divya Chakshu, where one can see with the even the yogic power. Who has the yogic power, they can also see the universal form. But then they must have the mercy of the Lord. And thirdly is the Prema Chakshu, which devotees like, where devotees see the Lord in the 200 form, and Krishna says this form, that's the 200 form, is very rare than the universal form. That's said here. Not even by the mental speculation can anybody see the 200 form of the Lord, only through the Prema Chakshu. And in Brahma Samhita also we have that Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. Only through the ointment of love one can see the Lord's the form, the 200 form. Yes, Mataji.
Yes, okay, that is covering the chapter 11, Prabhu. And for chapter 12, we have the verses 12.67 to 12, which talks about the progressive steps of devotional service.
Yes, Mataji. So from 12.6 to 7, Krishna explains about the devotional service. In the chapter 11, Krishna ends by saying that devotional service, only through devotional service one can see the Lord's 200 form, and continues to the 12th chapter, where Arjuna's question is that is it the impersonal form of the Lord is great, or the personal form of the Lord is great? And Krishna himself tells here that the personal form of mine is very important, and devotees love that form more than the universal form, that's which is impersonal and temporary form. So here why in Bhakti Yoga Krishna is explaining this, because in universal form, in the 11th chapter what we discussed, there a devotee cannot have any loving relationship with the universal form, but a devotee can have all kinds of all the 5 rasas and other minery rasas with the Lord in the 200 personal form, and not in the universal form of the Lord. So this is why Krishna stresses that my personal form is very much important, and the personal worship is good than the impersonal form. Impersonal form is very difficult it's very difficult. It's not that you cannot perceive it. It's very difficult. The path is very difficult, but the devotional service is very easy, and it's very easy for all the living beings, that they can have the personal relationship with the Lord, either in the DT form. When we are in the human form, we can have a personal relationship with the Lord through a DT form. So this is explained, and continues to this in the 12th chapter from 12.8 to 12.12. Krishna says about 5 progressive stages, or 5 stages where we can do the devotional service, and the topmost is 12.8, where he says the Ananya Bhakti. That's the topmost. And then comes Krishna says one has to fix his mind always on the Lord. That is Ananya Bhakti. And if you are not able to fix your mind on the Lord always, then at least do regulated way. That's the sadhana bhakti. Why the sadhana bhakti? If not even that, then do at least the karma yoga. Do some work for the Lord. Do some services for the Lord. If not, at least assist by giving something to the person who is doing devotional service, like charity or something you can give. That is the latest stage, the 4th. And the 5th and 6th is through the meditation or through jnana. The last 3 are not a direct, they are indirect way of devotional service. The first 3 are the direct way of devotional service, where a living entity directly has a contact of doing devotional service to the Lord. So this is explained in the 12th chapter. Later on, after 12.20, Krishna explains what are the qualities of the devotees. He says the devotees are neither hated to something or neither desired for something, and all these qualities of the devotees are explained from 12.20. And then Krishna says in 12.20 that those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me supreme goal, are very dear, and they are very dear to Krishna, and Krishna is very dear to them. So devotees are very dear to Krishna in the while they are doing devotional service. Only through devotional service one can be very dear to Krishna, and such devotees are very much pleasing to Krishna. And in this Kali Yuga, we can tell in the purport also, Srila Prabhupada writes that in this Kali Yuga, how we can do the devotional service, starting from the chanting of the holy name. That's the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Sri Lakshmi Mataji and Gunashri Mataji, for explaining so systematically, step by step, in simple language. So any devotees have any queries, questions, comments to share on this particular part, chapter 11, 12? Manisha Mataji, you have any comment to share? You have your hand raised.
No, Prabhu, sorry, it was raised earlier. Sorry.
No problem. All right, so thank you very much, all the devotees from group number 6 with Gunashri Mataji and Sri Lakshmi Mataji. So now we proceed to group 7. Hold on. So group 7, who will cover chapter 13 and 14. So who are the 2 devotees here?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I would be covering chapter 13, and Mataji will be covering chapter 14.
Prabhuji, what is the name of the Mataji who will be covering?
Let me, I think either me, that is Dharneshwari Mataji, or Lalita Mataji, either one of us will cover, Prabhuji.
In fact, as I said earlier, we completed the whole time in chapter 13.
13 only.
So, Mataji, I'm really thankful that you could do it in the remaining period.
Sure.
Hare Krishna. Chapter 13 is more or less a technical chapter, and it describes a lot of technical issues, but there are 2 sections that we came across connected to the devotional services. The first is verse 8 to 12, where it describes the various qualities, the qualities that devotees should develop. Like, I'll give you 1 or 2 examples: humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching bona fide spiritual master, etc. And these actually should be converted, and these qualities should be cultivated, and that is known as a process of acquiring a knowledge and method of acquiring a real knowledge. So when you cultivate all these 20 qualities, that's when you actually develop a method of acquiring a real knowledge. That is from verse 8 to 12. The second thing that we came across was from verses 13 to 19, where it describes about object of knowledge. Object of knowledge, of course, is super soul. Super soul is everywhere, and it is in everything, as given in 13.13 and 13.14. It's also a source of all the senses. In itself, it is a transcendental sense, and it is unattached and maintains all living entities. This is what we found out. Only in 13 to 19, it is also clearly described that only the devotee can understand the field of activity, that's the body, the process of knowledge, and soul and super soul. There was some connection in verse 13.5 and 6 where it describes 5 mayas, Annam, Pancham, Bhutam, Annamaya, Pranamaya, etc. But we couldn't connect it directly to devotional services. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank
Yes,
you very much, Prakash Prabhu. Yes,
yeah.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. In connection with that Brahma Pucham only, I would like to give that little detail, like how actually it can be connected to the devotional services. That is through the realization. So energy levels of the Paramatma's manifestation can be realized in Annamaya. That is, we living beings are dependent on the food for existence, and Pranamaya, we can realize the absolute truth in the living symptoms, and that is, or the life form. And Jnanamaya, beyond this food and life form, realization extending the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. So this realization will give about the body and the soul, what is the connectivity. And the Vijnanamaya will be the that's the Brahman realization, in which the living entity's mind, life, and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity. That is, along with the unmanifested form of the three gunas. So when the Anandamaya means above these three gunas, it will be the blissful form. So in all these levels, actually, we will be able to realize the Paramatma, and that can be achieved only through the devotional service, Prabhu. So that
Thank
is
you very much. So this is which text you just explained?
4.5, Prabhu, 13.5.
Okay.
5, Prabhu, 13.5. We have this. Okay. And with respect to this 14th chapter, so the first two texts actually, Krishna more further enhances actually how to understand the philosophy, the process of philosophy, so that living entity can come to an understanding of the devotional service. So that is the first phrase wherein, and the second one is that after acquiring the perfect knowledge, one acquires qualitative equality with the spiritual, that is a supreme personality of Godhead, that is free from the repetition of the birth and death, that is the cycle. When one develops the spiritual qualities, it is not affected either by the creation or destruction when the material world is getting destructed. So we no need to come again to this material realm. So Krishna being the original father of all the living entities. So that realization will be able to take it up when we enter into that is a devotional service, Prabhu. And then when we gradually extend, there all the text defines, the further text and all define, there are three gunas. So the qualities of the three gunas, and then what will be the when they after this life, where they will reach out, where will be their next birth, those things and all has been dealt. And the 20th sloka, that is a very important sloka in this. I would like to recite that one. 1 second. One second, because I didn't memorize that sloka. I have to. that gives the conclusion for the bhakti with respect to the that is chapter 14, Prabhu. So gunan etan atiti trin dehi deha sambodh bhavan janma mrityu jara dukhay vimukto amritam ashnute. That means when the embodied living entity is able to transcend from these three modes. So as long as we are attached to these three modes, because even sattva guna is having it has an expectation of being happiness, and then passion being the fruitive actions, and ignorance being the madness actually. So the above three, when a living entity, all these when they develop the qualities above three gunas, obviously they will be able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, and it can be free from this janma mrityu jara vyadi. And then even in this life, we will be able to enjoy this. That means the devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from the material entanglement. So devotional service is very important. So these are the slokas, Prabhu, actually, with respect to the...
So the last verse that you mentioned is 1420, right, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes.
1420. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Dharanishwari Mataji, Lalita Mataji, and Prakash Prabhu and group. In fact, some part of your chapters were quite technical, but you presented it really well. So now we proceed to group 8, who will cover chapter 15 and 16.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Radhika here. 15 and 16. So 15 chapter myself and Usha Mataji will cover, and 16 chapter Ramesh Prabhu and Devadasi Mataji will cover. So can I share the slide or you want yours?
Yes, hang on. Is it possible for you to share on WhatsApp, because I am not sure? Namanishta Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I'm the co-host. So
you are co-host, then you can share. That's fine. So
no, I just was made the co-host. So I think Prabhu did. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna. And so we are talking about the 15th chapter. And this is the part of the last, which is Jnana Yoga, and we get Jnana to reach Krishna. So the Bhakti is connected through Jnana through its very first shloka, which says Urdha Mudam, which means it's a upside down banyan tree. So the entire 15th chapter is Yoga of the Supreme Person, and the first shloka itself talks about our inverted reflection. This is a very important point, because if all of us want to live with reality, right? So what we are living is temporary, true, but we would like to go to an eternal and a permanent place. So this is what is a permanent place. So this is the first journey to Bhakti. It gives us the route map, and it talks about the destination which we have to reach. So this is based on the desire, and the desire is actually the step which stops and separates us between the spiritual world and the material world. This is explained by Prabhupada in the first 3 purports. Hare Krishna. And 15.6 establishes the fact that Krishna is a person, right? So this is Hare Krishna. Natad bhashayate surya, na shashanko na pavatah, yad gatva na nivartante, tadanam paramam mama. So very clearly, he is telling that my abode, it's actually does not have sun or moon. So which means that the Brahman effulgence automatically lights him up. And which very, very clearly shows that the energy obviously is subordinate to the person who's a source, and Krishna is a person. And so clearly establishes that Bhakti, number 2, because we can do devotional service or Bhakti to a person. We cannot have a conversation with a light or an energy, however beautiful the light can be. So this one, the first one establishes the source. This one establishes the person, right? The Sambandha with whom we will have Bhakti. So this is so clearly explained. And the next one is part and parcel, which is 15.7, which talks about Mamai Amso Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Mana Shastrani Indriyani, Prakriti Sani Kashati. Clearly explains 15.7 that we are part and parcels with limited independence, which we are misusing. And because of the 5 senses, especially the mind, which is the dominating one, we are trying to totally think we are the boss and we lord over the things. And this particular Soha, in fact, my 15.6 is supported by Isho Upanishad 15th mantra also, which says, Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pilitam mukam Tashman Pushana Pavrinyu Satya Dharmaya Drishtaye. So which means that we are the devotees, the devotees who are like really elevated are requesting Krishna to remove the Brahman effulgence, and so that they will see his face. So this is the supporting shloka. And the shloka again for 15.7, which says we are part and parcel, talks about, is the shloka in again Isha Upanishad, the sixth mantra, which says Yastu sarvani bhutani atmaneva nupashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tatona vijgupshate, clearly tells that we are part and parcels of Krishna. So both Bhagavad Gita, which is also an Isha, which is an Upanishad, and Isha Upanishad, which is an exclusive 18+1 mantra, both of them support each other and tell that words of Krishna, exactly whatever is said is backed off there in Isha Upanishad. So here we are part and parcel. So this again supports the fact that bhakti, our Sanatana Dharma, which means that our constitutional position is eternal, and service, devotional service, which is bhakti, is the base, and we need to go ahead with that because that's our natural inclination. Which is why, if you see, naturally everybody serves everyone, right? Husband serves wife, child serves mother, mother serves child. And if nobody is there, in fact, abroad, Prabhupada has said that at least they will have a cat or a dog and they serve, because that's a very natural instinct of human. And 15.10, I would request Usha Mataji to take over the slide. She explains this well.
Yes. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, everybody. So text 10 goes like this. Verse 10 goes like this. Utkramantam stitham vapi bhunjanam vagunanvitam.
Usha Mataji, I think you got muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Mataji, my bad. 1 second.
Yeah. So Hare Krishna, everybody. So verse 10 goes like this. Utkramantam stitham vapi bhunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhananu pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. So the word jnana chakshusha is very important here, and it talks about knowledge, and not just any mundane knowledge, it is spiritual knowledge. So without this kind of knowledge, one cannot understand really how a living entity leaves his present body, nor what kind of body he is going to take in his next life, or about how the modes of material nature are affecting him. So this requires a great amount of spiritual knowledge, which can be attained through religious texts like spiritual texts like Bhagavad Gita and Vedas, and from a bona fide spiritual master. So those who have developed this spiritual knowledge can see that the spirit is different from the body, and how the body is changing and enjoying in different ways. And a person with such knowledge can also develop his knowledge in Krishna consciousness. Yeah, and this Krishna consciousness involvement in it will bring self-realization and liberate oneself so that one can get transferred to the spiritual world. So this is how verse 10 talks about bhakti. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Usha Mataji. So we would have last few minutes for this.
Yes, Prabhu. Just exactly 2 minutes.
Yeah, chapter 16, because we want to finish on time and we need to cover one more group. So maybe just conclude.
30 seconds, I'll finish this slide.
Yes.
So 15.15, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivisto matta smriti jnana apohamsha vedescha sarver aham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavit eva chaham. This sloka I can't miss chanting. So this is something which is so beautiful, because Krishna very clearly says that he is the one who gives us the remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. So all of us who are speaking in this room are actually talking the words of Krishna, and that is because of the blessing of Krishna. Right? And Vede Sarves Aham. So he is the one who is not just the knower of Veda, but he is the compiler of Veda. And today we have this book which was told by Krishna and written by Veda Vyasa, who is none but Krishna himself. So we are lucky and blessed to have Bhagavad Gita, which is right now in the format, right? which is none other than Krishna himself. So this mantra proves this. And also very quickly, 17, 18, 19 talks about Sambandha, Abhinaya and Prayojan, which means Sambandha establishes relationship, which I've already explained earlier. And Abhinaya talks about the process, what we have to follow. Sadhana, follow the preachers, follow Prabhupada, who has already set the flow. And Prayojan is, yes, our ultimate destination, not to be in the mirror-like reflection in the material world and to reach the spiritual world. With this, I think we tried our best to bring out Bhakti from chapter 15. And 19, Krishna himself confirms that whoever ultimately knows me, that is knower of Krishna, knows literally everything. So this is the conclusion, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, sorry if we exceeded.
No problem. Thank you so much. It's amazing how come in such a small time you came up with such extensive, such nice presentation. Thank you very much, Usha Mataji, Radhika Mataji and the group. So now we proceed to the last group, which is group 9, to cover chapter
16 chapter, they have not.
Yeah, Mataji. Actually, we are short of time, Mataji, so we'll have to proceed to the last group. Hare Krishna, Radhika Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu.
We will have to go to the last group, Mataji, now.
Sure, no problem.
Sorry. So last group devotees, if you can volunteer.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
We have Vilas Prabhuji and Manas Prabhuji to support on chapter 17 and Ankit Prabhuji on chapter 18. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Yes, Vilas Prabhuji, please start.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Regarding this chapter 17, the verses related to actually elevate ourselves in the Suddha Sattva Guna. So Suddha Sattva Guna, for that actually we have to first develop the mode of goodness. So for that, verse number 17.4, 17.8, 17.11, that is related regarding the what type of food, regarding the faith, food, sacrifice, austerity which will include this body, mind and spirit, and last 17.20, charity. So with all these things, how we can elevate ourselves in the mode of goodness, and after that we can raise ourselves to the Suddha Sattva. So this is the related verses, and the final actually is 17.23 to 27. These are the most important verses, which is telling the importance of Om Tat Sat Iti. So any these activities we have to do this one with this Om Tat Sat. So this is the compilation from the chapter 17. So if you permit, then I can.
You want to
share? Otherwise, you can.
Yes, please.
Verse number.
You go ahead, Prabhuji. You can quote, Prabhuji.
Yeah, so from actually this 17.23, the meaning is from the beginning of the creation, the three words Om Tat Sat were used to indicate supreme absolute truth. With these three symbolic presentation were used by the Brahmanas while chanting the hymns of the Vedas and during the sacrifices for the satisfaction of the Supreme. So for the we are doing whatever we are doing for the satisfaction of the Supreme. This is the 23 number sloka, and 24 saying the transcendentalist undertaking performance of sacrifice, charity and penance in accordance with the spiritual regulations, being always with Om to attain the Supreme. So these are like Om, Tat and Sadbhav, that is 26 and 27. The absolute truth is the objective of the devotional service. So our main goal is go back to the Goloka, go back to Godhead. And it is the indicated by the word Sat. The performance of such sacrifice is also called Sat, and all the other works of the sacrifice, penance, charity, what it is included in this chapter, which is true to the absolute nature, are performed to please Supreme Person, O Son of Rutha. So this is the highlights of the chapter.
Thank you very much, Vilas Prabhu.
Thank you, sir. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhu. Who will be the other devotee, Vilas Prabhu, from your group?
Ankit Prabhuji will, for 18, Ankit Prabhuji will.
Okay, okay, fine. Let me pin Ankit Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Ankit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Let me.
You want to share something, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, okay, fine.
The verses. So 18th chapter is very large, but I will pick up few verses. So first is 55th. Yes. So 55th in 55th verse. So Krishna says that who can know the Krishna? So because
Prabhuji,
we
you
have
want to
read
share
the
screen, or if not, I can share the slides. You want to share from your side?
Prabhuji, I am not.
Okay, okay, fine, no problem. You continue, Prabhuji, that's fine.
Yes, so in 55th sloka, Krishna says that Bhaktya Mama Janati Yavan Chasmi Tattva. By only devotional service we can know Krishna. So in purport, Prabhupada says that Krishna can be known by devotional service, not by mental speculation. So also in introduction, Prabhupada says that why Prabhupada is writing Bhagavad Gita as it is, because there is a need of the Bhagavad Gita by your devotees. So because people have written it by mental speculation. So in next sloka, which is next is 63 sloka. So in 63 sloka, Krishna is saying that Yatha Ichchasi Tatha Kuru. Means after telling all the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has given a choice to Arjuna. So in that way, Krishna has given us a choice. So either we can use that free will in service of Krishna or in sense gratification. So we have a choice. Then next sloka is then next is 64th. Krishna 65th. Krishna is saying Mad Mana Bhav Mad Bhakto Madhyajimam Namaskuru. Hame Prasisi Satyam Te Pratijane Priyo Asime. So this sloka and this sentence Mad Mana Bhav Mad Bhakto Madhyajimam Namaskuru, it is repeated 2 times. So because it is, so we can understand that this is very important because it is repeated 2 times. In the next sloka 66, the Krishna, which is also considered the summary of Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshashyami ma sucha. So in purport, Prabhupada is saying that one who surrenders to Krishna, Krishna is guaranteeing that Krishna will help. So that way. And next is, let me say 6. Yeah. So yes. So next is, yeah. So next is 68. So which is very important for the preachers who are preaching the message of Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna is saying that Yam idam param guhyam mad bhaktishu abhidhasyati bhakti mai param kritva mameva eshyasi asansaya. Means one who preaches the message of the Bhagavad Gita, it surely comes to back to Krishna. So, and in 69th sloka, Krishna is saying that one who preaches the message of Bhagavad Gita is very dear to Krishna. So, that way. And 73. And in 73, 73rd sloka, Arjuna is saying that Nashto Moha Smriti Labda Tat Prasad An Maya Chutaha Sthito asmi gata sandeha karishye vachanam tava. So Krishna has said that yatha ichchasi tatha kuru. Means he has given the choice to Arjuna. But what Arjuna did, as Arjuna followed the instruction of Krishna. So he said karishye vachanam tava. Means I will do whatever you told. So in that way we should follow Arjuna. So we should follow the footsteps of Arjuna. So we should use our free will in service of Krishna. So from that sloka we can understand that. And at last, in 78th sloka, which is the last sloka of Bhagavad Gita. So in that, Sanjay is saying that Yatra Yogeshwar Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatra Sri Vijayo Bhutidurvo Nitir Matir Mama. So where there is Krishna and where there is devotee like Arjuna, so everything is completed there. Everything is there. Yes, there is victory. There is opulences. Everything is there. So Krishna and his devotion makes the life perfect. So that's the end of Bhagavad Gita. Prabhuji, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Ankit, Prabhu, and all the devotees from Group 9. So almost every verse after chapter text 55 onwards in chapter 18 is very, very important. So thank you all the devotees. Namanishta Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, yes, Prabhuji, you're on mute.
Yes. So nice to see everybody. So many people growing. There, Prabhupada used to say, what is it? Can't you see the magic? You got the knowledge. So it's so happy to see everybody getting knowledge of Bhagavad Gita now.
All with your grace and mercy and your support, help, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Okay, so see, there is a bhakti. Prabhupada says that the discussion of Krishna and Arjuna is only bhakti, because he gives an example. Suppose you go to vegetable market. Now, when you go to the vegetable market, and suppose you don't know what's the discussion going on, you're watching from a distance. So what is expectation? Morning 5 o'clock, if you have gone to the vegetable mandi, what will you talk? Kya bhav hai? There is only one talk there. You don't think that discussion going on about Ramayana, Mahabharata. Not a possibility. So similarly, for people who are externally looking at Bhagavad Gita, they should understand this point. Mayavadis don't agree to this. That when Krishna is talking to his celebrated devotee Arjuna, there is only one talk. When Lord Rama is talking to Hanuman, what do you expect? My dear Lord, my dear Bhakta. That's all is expected. No, what else do you expect? So similarly, Krishna is speaking to Arjuna with so much devotion. And Srila Prabhupada says that these purports are my devotional ecstasies. Therefore, I have so many devotees, they say these purports are so sweet. Prabhupada said, if you say just the translation, many devotees make that mistake. They read Bhagavatam, they are so lazy bums. They will not sit and read Bhagavatam. They just read only the translation. And then you miss all the ecstasy. Similarly, you can read Bhagavad Gita, just the translation, but the purports are where the ecstasy of the Acharya lie, and which will make you grow spiritually. In fact, I remember when I was, so many purports of Bhagavad Gita actually shake you. There is, if you read the, so there is a beautiful purport in Bhagavad Gita of the shloka. Krishna says, Devi Yeshu Gadame Maya Duratya Mama Evaya Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarajite, and receives. And this was when I was just a new devotee and I was reading Bhagavad Gita. And it says in the purport, Prabhupada says that Krishna relieves the conditioned soul from Maya because finally they are his, very interesting word Prabhupada uses, they are beloved son. The soul is after all a beloved son of the Lord. The Lord relieves him from Maya. When I read that, it is too strong. It is too strong, and it was so touched. Finally, the beloved son of the Lord. So in this way, it's very ecstatic reading Bhagavad Gita. And you find in the Bhagavad Gita throughout as everybody has pointed out, bhakti being upheld, and which is expected because Krishna says, Bhakti amam abhijanati. I can be known only by devotion. So definitely he's going to talk about devotion. Krishna takes to Arjuna. What does he say to Arjuna? Bhakto vasi me sakacheti. You are my devotee. So bhakti is the ultimate conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. You have pointed out from various chapters. And Prabhupada also, if you see many purports, points out this. Practically every chapter, bhakti is upheld as the ultimate objective. This bhakti is, now what we are learning is, some rules and regulations. Manamana bhavada bhakto madhyaji. We have the 6 elements of surrender of bhakti. There can be another analysis how the different shlokas of Bhagavad Gita cover the 6 elements of surrender. We can do so many ways of analysis. Overall, there are rules and regulations discussed. At the same time, yad karoshi, yad ashnashi, yad juhoshi, or the rule regulation of there is patram pusham phalam toyam. These are all techniques. Brahmand Brahmite Kona Bhagavana Bija, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bija. So the Bija is being discussed, and some people say the Bija is the joy of serving Krishna. Some people say the rules and regulations of devotion service. So both are there. Machita Matagata Prana, Bodhayasa Parasparam, Katyantasya, Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. The devotee takes so much pleasure in advancement of bhakti. So definitely there are so much elements we are reading of the Bhagavad Gita, but at the end, finally, our heart should open out to love Krishna. And Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. Your reading of Bhagavad Gita is almost getting complete, but don't stop, keep reading, keep reading. Bhakti Shastri is just some very basic kind of analysis to see they understood the concepts. But how much you could feel the Bhagavad Gita, this all you have to keep reading again and again. Okay, not that Bhakti Shastri ho gaya, ab to Bhagavad Gita nahi padhe. Now keep reading it again and again because there is so much pleasure. Next time when you read Bhagavad Gita, it should be more ecstatic. In fact, very interesting thing is you read purports of Prabhupada and you find so much ecstasy. And next time you read the same purport, you may not find the same ecstasy. It's because our consciousness is going up and down. When it is up, every line looks like this whole book, like we say, a packet of love of Krishna. It's the love of Krishna, The Krishna is expressing in Bhagavad Gita, love letter, we say always. So the love of Krishna, a packet of love of Krishna. It's like, I remember when I used to look at Bhagavad Gita in the beginning, it used to be very challenging because so many things I could not understand. So many concepts I could understand. True? It's like in the beginning like that. And at a certain level comes acceptance. You accept all the concepts of Bhagavad Gita. But then comes ecstasy. You look at Bhagavad Gita, not just for information. You look Bhagavad Gita as a, intense love of Krishna. So very delighted to see all of you understanding Bhagavad Gita. And I hope all of you grow, become wonderful devotees and teach Bhagavad Gita to everybody. And I think after this, we have 3 more books. So maybe another 3-4 months more to finish our first batch of Bhakti Shastri. Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Pran Chaitanya Prabhu. You will want to add something?
No, Prabhuji. Perfect, Prabhuji. Whatever you mentioned.
No, you are muted. Yeah.
Perfect, Prabhuji. Whatever you just mentioned. So
isn't it our Pran Chaitanya is full of etiquettes? Very nice. Okay. Yes, Prabhuji.
We just covered a recap of all the chapters which Srila Prabhupada mentions as in prelude to chapter 18. So in the next sitting, we will conclude with Lord Krishna's important instructions to Arjun in the concluding part of Bhagavad Gita, going into some of Srila Prabhupada's purport, and then we are done with chapter 18, Bhagavad Gita. Then we start with remaining books. Yes, Prabhuji.
कहाँ से 1 साल निकल गया समझ में नहीं आया. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Pran Prabhu, one question. For batch 2, what are we going to do, Prabhu? Because the first unit is left for us.
Namanishta Prabhu, how do we?
What is the question?
For the chapter 1 to 6 part of Bhagavad Gita, so we had a second batch of devotees who had joined after it was completed. So when and how do we?
Okay. Then after this, let us, because we will, this is the module, they joined at module 2. So module 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then module 1. Anna?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Correct. Or I can give them, because it's everything within us only. The new batch, we will be starting a new batch very soon. We have done a survey and we got something like 600 people chanting 16 rounds. So all of them will be going to Bhakti Shastri. So we will having many batches of Bhakti Shastri starting within 10-15 days. So they can join any one of them and do the first 6 chapters with them. Okay? If he wants, well, he will be doing 2. He will be doing 30, other 3 books also, and that also he can do together, because we will see the time doesn't clash. Okay.
Yes.
That will be possible, no? So
Yes.
that Prabhu, that help we can give you all who are joined in module 2. The module 1 we can do with another batch parallelly, so that you can together graduate with this batch. Okay?
Okay, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Take care. Just remind us when to start. Take care. Yes, Prabhuji.
That's it for today, Prabhuji. So we'll conclude probably next week.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Vacha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhuve Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Anant Koti Vaishnavindaki Jai.
Jai.
Hare